Hello, football fans and basketball fans today. Welcome to another episode of Football Talk with Jon and Evan. I'm your host, John Justin Jankowski, with Evan Knows His Football Bonner. We got to start off with basketball. I know we're a football-first podcast, but we're a predominantly Philadelphia sports podcast, and the biggest Philadelphia sports news is 76ers traded for the first overall pick. They swapped with the Boston Celtics. They also sent the Boston Celtics a first-round pick. It's either going to be the Lakers' unprotected pick next year or the Kings' unprotected pick 2 years down the road. Now, if the Lakers' pick turns into the first overall pick or a pick after 6, the Sixers keep it, and the Celtics get the Kings' unprotected pick, unless that Kings' unprotected pick also turns into a first overall pick. Then the Celtics would just get the Sixers' first-round pick that year. So Markelle Fultz, this is somebody Evan and I really wanted when we're just looking for that kind of player. When we were talking last episode, we wanted a guy that can shoot. And Markelle Fultz can not only shoot the three ball, can shoot the elbow jumper, he can drive, he plays really well off the pick and roll. He can also create his own shot in isolation. I mean, this is an overall huge win for Philadelphia 76er fans. And you traded basically, this is because of Michael Carter-Williams and taking on salary from the Sacramento Kings, that the 76ers were able to make this move. It makes sense for Boston. They can keep stockpiling picks so they can go out and be a favorite for Jimmy Butler or Paul George because they're the favorites to get Gordon Hayward. So they're more in a win now kind of mentality. So it also makes sense for Boston. But, Evan, huge win for the Sixers, I think.
First of all, John, I'd like to say it's good to be back. We haven't done a show in about a month, so it's good to keep this going, John. But, yeah, I do agree with you. I think this is a win-win situation for both teams. I think this is a can't-miss situation for the Sixers simply because, they didn't really give up a whole lot. It says on paper that they gave up 2 first-round picks, but in all reality, they swapped 1 pick, and they're going to give up another one later. And obviously, it's first overall protected. It's good to be on the other side of the protected pick than the side that we've been on the last couple of years. Obviously, we had been waiting for that Lakers pick to turn out, and now we actually get something for it. And I'm very excited. I think Markelle Fultz, like John said, is exactly what this team needs. And yes, he does shoot the ball very well, but he's also a playmaker. He's a driver. He's got a very good fluidity and body control. He gets to the hoop, do all those things very well. And there are some concerns. He did only win 2 league games, I think, in the Pac-12 this year. So Washington really wasn't all that strong. And me and my brother and a few of my friends were talking to each other, amongst ourselves this week. We were trying to figure out why a guy like Markelle Fultz would have picked Washington to begin with. He probably could have played anywhere. And I actually really liked his reasoning. I saw on Comcast Sportsnet that Markelle Fultz picked Washington because Washington was the only team in Division I college basketball to send a coach to Markelle Fultz's every AAU game and varsity high school game throughout his entire career. So he rewarded them for their commitment and their loyalty to Markelle Fultz, and that's the reason why he went there. So what does that mean? Hopefully, if Markelle Fultz works out for the Sixers and it's time for him to sign that second deal, maybe he shows some loyalty again and he sticks around for the team that drafted him. So I liked that idea that in a world where franchise players just kind of go and create super teams, you get a guy like Markelle Fultz who, at least in the past, has shown a lot of loyalty. So I really like that. This is a can't-miss situation because even if he doesn't work out, you really didn't give up a whole lot. And if this does work out, then you potentially have the 3 best players the 3 of the last 4 drafts. You might walk away with the 3 best players, and Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, and now Markelle Fultz. So it's very exciting to see what could happen with the Sixers. I think they might have just created a potential super team through the draft if that works out. But who knows? But I think, John, one thing that I've been kind of hearing a lot about Markelle Fultz and Dario Saric and Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid is that the Sixers are kind of moving towards what the league is moving towards, and that's positionless basketball, if you know what I mean. There's now 3, 4, even 5 guys on the floor at a time. They all can kind of interchange and play different position. Obviously, Joel Embiid isn't going to be a point guard, and I don't think Markelle Fultz is going to play center anytime soon. But Markelle can kind of play anywhere from that 1 to that 3 range offensively and defensively. Ben Simmons can kind of play anywhere from 1 to 4 offensively, and maybe not 1 defensively, but he's kind of around there. Dario Saric can run 3 and 4, and maybe in a small lineup run a little bit of 5. Robert Covington can play 2, 3, and 4 in a smaller lineup. So now you can go out and you can mix and match, and what that does, John, is now you can't really get hurt defensively. You know, back in the day, if you had someone like Tyrone Hill on the floor, you can't match him up on a 3 defensively. You know, you couldn't match Theo Ratliff on a 3 or a 4. You couldn't take Tony Kukoc and put him at a 2. But now what the Sixers are doing is you can kind of match up defensively. You can run big, you can run small, and no matter what happens, you're really not going to hurt yourself defensively. And that's a huge part of what Brett Brown brings to the table is that defensive mentality. And Markelle Fultz obviously fits that bill, shoots the ball well, playmaker. And I think it's a great fit, John. I can't stop raving about this move. I like it so much more than if they had gotten Josh Jackson or anyone else really in this draft, Lonzo Ball, Monk, anybody. I think Markelle Fultz works out best for Sixers. And, I think this is the type of move that everyone's going to like, and it's the popular move. But just because it's popular doesn't make it correct. I think this is exactly the right move for the Sixers moving forward.
What I just love is how much everyone in the East seems to be like in a craze that they're in panic mode, and they're just like they don't know what to do. And not being one of those teams to be in the oh no mode. Look at it. Cavs just lost David Griffin, their GM, who LeBron liked. And last week we had those rumblings from Adrian Wojnarowski, who was probably the best NBA insider, saying LeBron's going to LA after the season, so Cav fans are worried. Then you look at a team like the Toronto Raptors, who are a very good team. Kyle Lowry, he wants a max deal. Do you want to pay him that deal? Then you look at a team like the Washington Wizards, who could have made the Eastern Conference Finals. Now they're facing a decision. Do we pay Otto Porter a max deal? Then you look at another playoff team in the East like the Indiana Pacers. Their best players said, I'm not coming back next year. Then you also look at a team like the New York Knicks. Kristaps Porzingis, who's one of the best players in the NBA, they just said, yep, he's on the trading block. You have all these teams in the Eastern Conference that are just in this stuck mode or they're in a panic mode, and not being one of those teams is fantastic. Like, I just can't wait for the draft. We're going to pick Markelle. It's going to be awesome. It just feels so good to not be an oh-no team right now.
Well, I'm excited for the draft, John. I really am, even though, the Sixers will be there won't be a ton of excitement. First overall pick, we know what they're going to do. But, John, it is my birthday on June 22nd. I'll be 27 years old. So hopefully for my birthday, we get Markelle Fultz. It'll be a lot of fun. But in all seriousness, John, I couldn't agree with you more. We know exactly where the Sixers stand. Their top players aren't really looking to get moved. And honestly, John, I think a lot of people are talking about how the Sixers are still 2 or 3 years away. I think they might be that way in terms of winning a championship. But, John, no one really talks about that. There was a point in this season in January and early February before Joel Embiid gets hurt and they start tanking again. The Sixers were only, at one point, 3, 4, 5 games away from a playoff spot? And if Joel Embiid didn't get hurt even before Ben Simmons or anything like that, maybe that team sneaks in the playoffs last year. Now you get a healthy Ben Simmons back. Obviously, we don't know for sure what he is, but he could. But if he is what we think he is, or even if he's just 75% of what he think he is, that's a pretty darn good ball handler. Now you got Dario Saric, who really came on and a lot of people thought was the rookie of the year last year. You know what he is. If Joel Embiid stays healthy, I know that's a big if, but if he stays healthy, you know what you have there. And if Markelle Fultz is, again, just 75%, 50% of what we think, right away, John, I mean, how many teams are better than this Sixers team in the East right now? Now you have T.J. McConnell coming off the bench. You potentially have Dario Saric starting or coming off the bench. Same thing with Robert Covington. You've got depth. You've got shooters now. You've got defensive ability. You've got position and team versatility. You have the most amount of money in the entire league to spend. And, all your players are young.
JJ. Hi. We would love you in Philly. We love your three-point shooting percentage. Hi, JJ.
That would be fun. But the point is, John, the Sixers have a lot of versatility, a lot of upside. But you look at it right now, John, I mean, assuming we do take Markelle Fultz, I mean, you just look at our roster. Who's more talented than the Sixers right now in the East? Obviously the Cavs. I would say probably most definitely the Boston Celtics. Then after that, I mean, you look at what the Sixers have, at least on paper, and I know it's just on paper. Would you say that the Sixers could compete with the Wizards, John?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the Sixers on paper can beat any team in the East that's not Cleveland.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we're talking about right now. Maybe not Boston, but we're talking about
I mean, look at the regular season. I know it's regular season, but Boston and Philly went head-to-head. Those were nail-biting games, and that was without Ben Simmons or Markelle Fultz and Embiid half the time.
That's why
the difference between the second seed and the worst team in the East is not that big. The East is so bad. The East is atrocious.
Well, John, when was the last time the East was better than the West? Like when Michael Jordan was around? I mean,
what do you mean? At least when we were following the Sixers in 2001, like really closely, at least you had a Vince Carter Raptors and a Ray Allen Bucks team, and you had a Reggie Miller Pacers team. I mean,
well, yeah, John, I agree with you that there are less super. But this East hasn't been good in a while, and it's not like it's new. I'm not arguing. I agree with you that yes, the East is weak. It's always been weak, and obviously, John, you just got done saying that LeBron James might leave Cleveland, so you never know what could happen. The Sixers.
Okay, here comes my first point. I've been talking to some Sixer friends as well. A lot of my Sixer friends, they don't want LeBron to leave because they want to beat the best. Now, after this season, to LA and because it's an easier East, or do you want to beat the best?
I mean, what does that mean, John? I mean, I want to win games. I mean, that'd be like saying, all right, the 0-1 Sixers, are the best in the East, but these other teams really aren't that good. Let's put the San Antonio Spurs in 2001, put them in the East because we want to beat the best. I mean, I don't know, John. I mean, I want to see the Sixers win games. I mean, there's no bragging right. I mean, honestly, John, I mean, would any of your friends would honestly feel better if the Sixers lost to the Cavs with LeBron James? But if LeBron moves to LA and the Sixers win the East, you're saying they feel worse about that? I mean, I don't know.
I thought it was ridiculous. I'm with you. I completely agree with you.
John, I mean, I don't know. Yes, I'm a competitive person. And yes, I want to beat the best. But here's the thing, John. I mean, if LeBron moves over to the West and the Sixers win the East, they still got to play the best team in the West anyway. So eventually you got to beat the best. Wouldn't you rather just put it off till later? I mean, that's like saying I want to play the best team in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah.
Because you want to beat the best right away. But no, that doesn't work out like that because if you're the best team, you play the worst right away. Then you play the second worst team. And then you play the best team in the East. And then you play the best team in the West. So it doesn't really matter when you play them. I would just like to get a chance to get into the finals. And then if you got to play LeBron or in LA or more realistically, another Warriors team with probably Kevin Durant again and Steph Curry and who knows with Klay Thompson. But they'll probably all still be. So eventually you're going to have to beat the best regardless of where they go to get to an NBA title. Just, if LeBron moves to the West, it might just be a little bit later. So to me, that's kind of ridiculous because it's not like they're two separate leagues.
Now, I'll go into
have to play them.
What is your timeline right now? Because I got first round exit in the playoffs this year. The year after that, I have them reaching the Eastern Conference Finals. And then in 2020, I have the Sixers going to the NBA Finals. What's your timeline looking like?
John, first of all, that's an absurd question. The draft hasn't happened yet. We know Markelle Fultz, but don't they have at least one other first-round pick this year?
Who?
I thought they did.
The Sixers, no. They just have 3 or 4 second-rounders.
That's right. They got the 36th overall pick, Caleb Swanigan, Purdue. But what I'm trying to say, John, is that we know Markelle Fultz. We don't know who else they're doing a draft. Now it's like, all right, you got, $60 million under the cap, but what free agent are they really going to bring in? I mean, you got Markelle Fultz probably in the starting. You pretty much have your starting lineup already set up, so you're probably not going to spend money. I mean, John, we just got done saying that the Sixers could beat anybody except for the Cavs in the East on paper. So you're saying that they could potentially be, a 3 seed in the East this year? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe. I mean, but then, John, you're playing a weaker team in the East, so why couldn't they win a playoff round? I mean, the Sixers, their first year in the playoffs with Allen Iverson, didn't they win a round? And nobody was expecting.
I don't remember.
I think they beat either the Hornets with Baron Davis and Wesley and all them, or they beat the Orlando Magic with Armstrong and maybe that was a year before TJ or T-Mac got there. But yeah, I mean, John, you never know. I mean, the Eagles, their first year in the playoffs with Andy Reid and all that, they beat the didn't they beat
Tampa Bay?
Tampa Bay,
They
yeah,
beat Tampa.
with Sean King before they lost to the New York Giants in the divisional round, and nobody was expecting that. So who knows? But John, realistically, for my timeline, I absolutely expect this team to make the playoffs this year. I honestly probably expect them to win a round. I mean, why not? I mean, if Joel Embiid is healthy, I know that's an if Ben Simmons is just 3/4 of what we expect him to be, and if Markelle Fultz is 3/4 what we expect him to be, if Dario Saric continues to play like he has been playing, continuing to improve, if they make a solid free agency move here, I mean, these are all ifs, but these aren't really – we're not asking any of these players to be anything more than what we expect them to be. And if all those things happen, all of a sudden now – you're looking at a playoff series, maybe even two. So, yes, John, I agree with you. They probably don't win a title, even if things continue to go where they're going until 2020 plus. But I expect this team to be competitive right away. And competitive in the East is not a first-round exit. Because, John, you look at the playoffs in the NBA playoffs. I mean, if you're losing in the first round, there's a good chance you're getting swept or you're losing in 5 games. I mean, when was the last time? I mean, there was, one good series in the entire Eastern Conference playoffs last year? The Celtics and the Wizards, right?
Yeah, second round.
Yeah, and that was it. I mean, even the finals stunk. So, I mean, if you're not winning rounds, you probably aren't even all that competitive. So I would expect the Sixers to be competitive, maybe even win a round and continue to improve. And then if the Lakers think again, maybe you end up with the first overall pick again. So in my mind, I look at this team and I think the possibilities are endless, and they could win a playoff series very quickly.
It's just a weird spot to be in. So the Sixers have been playoff-less the last 5 years. Obviously, the first playoff-less year, Bynum never played. The big trade for Bynum never worked out. He never played a game for the Sixers. And then basically, the Sixers tanked 4 seasons in a row. Was sitting through these 4 seasons of tanking worth it?
Right this moment?
Yeah, has it been with the roster the Sixers now have for the next several years, was losing on purpose for 4 years worth it?
That's a tough question to answer, John, because on paper, this roster is awesome. They're young, they're talented, they're athletic, they're position versatile. They do different things. On paper, I'd say absolutely, but until they start actually winning, until they make the playoffs and win a round or two, until they really make a splash and they're consistently competitive in the league, no, it's not. Because there's always that chance that Joel Embiid gets hurt. Ben Simmons never really recovers. Foot problems with big guys never really work out. There's a chance that Dario Saric has already hit his ceiling. There's a chance that Markelle Fultz never really works out. And if that's the case, then we really haven't gone anywhere, have we? In which case, no, it isn't worth it. But assuming all things considered, there's a good chance that it will be worth it very, very quickly. And, John, where the Sixers were for the tanking and the process, they were never going to do anything. I mean, they were a perpetual 6, 7, or 8 seed first-round out team. So at least now there's hope. At least there's ability. So I'm going a long way around the barn to say, yes, I do ultimately think it's worth it. But if Joel never really gets healthy, if Dario's hit his ceiling, if Ben never really gets healthy, or this isn't what we think he is, if Markelle flops, then no. Then you're kind of in the same situation or worse than you were in before. But again, there's hope now, there's ability now, there's a chance now, and on paper it is absolutely worth it. But until we see them on the court, there's no way of telling. But there is $60 million under the cap, and you can go out and sign free agents. So realistically, yes, it will be worth it. But right now, as we stand on June 20th, 2017, no, it's not worth it because you haven't actually seen the fruits of your labor at this point. So
I'll have one counter to that. I'll say it is definitely worth it because name me one team in the Eastern Conference you would rather have been the last 4 years that wasn't a LeBron team.
The Celtics.
Been a fan of the Celtics the past 4 years than a Sixers fan. Past 4 years.
They got a superstar in Isaiah Thomas.
I don't.
You had a general manager.
I don't agree with that. I don't think Isaiah Thomas is a superstar because he's a 5'9" guard, undersized guard, and his contract year is this year, and he a max 5'9" guard.
John, how tall was Allen Iverson? Don't tell me 6 foot. He wasn't 6 foot. He was 5'10".
But you're also coming from a kid who never thought I never thought Allen Iverson would ever win a title. So,
John, this is a Philadelphia podcast. We're losing viewers every time you say these things. I mean, realistically, John, the Celtics just were in the Eastern Conference Finals. They've continued to retool. They got a chance to go out and get Jimmy Butler. They never had a tank to do it. They've got
okay. So you named outside of LeBron, you named one team that you would rather have been a fan of.
Well, because they're retooling and they're competitive and they're young and they're exciting and they didn't have to tank.
No, but I'll say, I'll give you the Celtics, but I'm just saying it just tells you a lot about the Eastern Conference if there's only 2 or 3 teams, the two LeBron teams.
Well, John, are we taking all 4 years and combining them, or can I go year to year? Because there was a year where the Atlanta Hawks were really competitive, and they were
but no one ever thought the Atlanta Hawks were going to beat LeBron.
Yeah, no one did. I'll go. Oh, Paul Mita did, but he was an idiot. Besides that, I would say, the Wizards have John Wall, and they've been a little competitive. I'll give you, John, that there's been hope in Philadelphia really ever since the drafting of ever since the trade that got you Nerlens Noel. There's been hope, and I get that. But also, John, is we weren't real. The last year's back half tank, no one expected. And when you drafted Joel Embiid, you weren't expecting him to be out for 2 full years. And when you drafted Ben Simmons, you weren't expecting him to miss any time. And so, yes, we knew what was coming. And yes, the tank has been difficult. The tank, we all knew it was going somewhere. But it seemed that this tanking was only supposed to go 1 or 2 years and ended up going 4. That's a long time. And obviously, I know that I don't want to sound like I'm a know-it-all, even though I always manage to sound like I'm a know-it-all. But I remember being in my college house in Bryn Mawr, if you remember that place, John, with my old roommate, Randy Tatey. And I remember saying to him that you had to blow up this team. You had to tank. And we got into an argument, and I was right. We ended up tanking. Initially, I wanted Wiggins. And, I was right about the tank. I was for it. I believe that you got to play the game the way it's set up and the way the Sixers were set up. They were never going to get out of that first round. And even when they got to the second round, they were a game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. Anyone with half a brain will tell you had Derrick Rose not been hurt and Joakim Noah a little bit later, they never would have gotten out of the first round. And it's interesting, John, but I don't know. It's not like we just tanked. The tank kind of kept going on longer than any of us thought it would. And it became very frustrating and very difficult. And I would say the one saving grace through that entire tank process, besides the fact that you were getting players whether they were playing or not, is Brett Brown. Brett Brown has been a fantastic coach. He's shown the ability to improve these players, even when, they're a bunch of gypsies who kind of keep moving around and they never stay home. Their jump shots all improve. They all buy in defensively. They all get better throughout the course of the year. And every year, I'm telling you, anyone who doesn't believe me, start Googling. At one point every year throughout all 4 years of this tank, at one point the Sixers would start turning around. They'd start to win games. You start to think that the tank is over, and then Hinkie would panic and then start trading everybody, and they'd start tanking again. 2 years ago, the Sixers started to get better. Then they traded everyone again, and they had to start tanking again. So it was extremely difficult, John. That's what I'm trying to say. But ultimately, I do think it was worth it. And yes, I'm happy to be a Sixers fan ultimately because of Brett Brown.
And just a little timeline for you guys. June 22nd, Evan's birthday is the draft. Then July 7th is NBA Summer League, where you'll get to watch Markelle in a Sixers uniform. October 5th, NBA preseason, where you get to see finally all that whole crew together. And then October 20th, the real season starts. So that's a little Sixers timeline for you. These guys will be on the court. Since we're a football-first podcast, we have to talk about the biggest Eagle news since Evan and I's last podcast. It's a little bit of old news, but Evan had to be thrilled for this move because this is his kind of guy. Eagles finally get a running back and on a good deal, a one-year deal, a cheap deal, I think, for LeGarrette Blount. nose for the end zone is the way to describe it. I mean, Bill Belichick hasn't forgiven him for fumbling in the Super Bowl this past year. But I love the move. I can't remember really the last time the Eagles signed a guy that they're going to use as just a nose for the end zone kind of player. You also have all these change of pace running backs now behind Blunt. So, Evan, what do you think of the Blunt signing and what's it mean for the team?
I mean, John, I want to love it. And I love LeGarrette Blount historically. I love it. And there's so many positives to this. I mean, 18 touchdowns over, 1,100 yards rushing, 4 yards per carry, 3.94 yards per carry. On paper, it's awesome. But it's also like I've been burned with these kind of moves so often. In my mind, if he was that good, like, why did Bill Belichick get rid of him? And don't tell me because he fumbled in the Super Bowl. It's ridiculous. I mean, if they felt like LeGarrette Blount could still help you, they would have kept him around. And so the best organization in the league with the best coach and the best culture and, probably top to bottom, the best roster, if they don't think he can help anymore, why would we assume he would help here? I'm worried that you're picking up a player who isn't all that motivated, who seems to get into trouble when he's not with Bill Belichick. I don't know, because on this podcast, on the show, I've talked over and over again how I love the physical back and I love the north-south running, and I should love this move. And on paper, I do love this move, and I love LeGarrette Blount. I even love the punch he threw at Oregon. I love everything about him. But it's just sometimes, John, if it seems too good to be true, it probably is. And, you saying that he's just going to be a goal line back. I don't agree with that.
I'm not saying he's going to be a goal line back, but, have that. And that's what I think first is that nose for – he's going to be –
a lot of ways, if things work out the way we expect them to, I think he's your featured back. I mean, who else is going to get the amount of carry? I mean, I know Doug Peterson comes from the Andy Reid School of Football, and I know the Eagles fans have a tendency to have revisionist history, and I've heard people say that Andy ran the foot, and I was like, the Eagles never ran the football with Andy, and I remember for years it was like they need to run the ball, Donovan dropped back 50 times, and I'm a little worried that Doug's got a little bit of that Andy Reid in him, where even though you should run the ball, and he knows you should run the ball, and he tells us he's going to run the ball, he's not going to be able to help himself, and Carson Wentz is still going to drop. I mean, didn't Carson Wentz break the Eagles' record for attempts in a season last year or something?
Yeah, there was 7 games in a row where Carson Wentz dropped back more than any 7-game period Donovan ever had.
I mean, that's ridiculous to me, and that just says a lot about Doug Peterson, like Andy Reid back in the day, just not being able to help himself. So obviously, I'm a little worried that they're not going to use LeGarrette as much as we want him to, and that could become an issue with a guy like LeGarrette Blount. But what I hope this means is they're going to really lean on LeGarrette. They're going to lean on the running game. They're going to let Carson Wentz be a play action, quarterback. LeGarrette's going to force 8 guys into the box, and Carson's going to have more room to throw now to Alshon Jeffrey and Jordan Matthews and Torrey Smith and maybe even Nelson Aguilar if he continues to play as well as he had in OTAs and obviously Zach Ertz. So you have the weapons on paper. I'm just worried, John, that Doug's going to pull an Andy. And even though he says they're going to run the ball, and I bet you that they're even going to game plan to run the ball, and they're going to go into games for wanting to run the ball, and Doug's just not going to be able to help himself. And next thing you know, Carson's dropping back 42 times a game, and we're only getting, 17 runs, 12 of them from LeGarrette Blount. He's only giving you 3.1 yards per carry, not real a few touchdowns in the goal line, but that's really it. Now he's frustrated. We know LeGarrette can cause problems. Teams aren't respecting the run, and that next thing you know, it's tough for Carson to throw the ball because there's not a lot of space to throw it. And I don't know. I can see this being a disaster, but I can also see it. If Doug Peterson can break that Andy Reid mold and just commit to running the ball. Because John, what was the best offensive game they played last year?
Trying to remember.
The Atlanta Falcons.
Okay, yeah. Oh, and Ryan Matthews went off for 160 yards.
Just like back in the day, every time Donovan got hurt, the Eagles' offense would become more proficient, and it was never because of Donovan. It was because Andy would then buck and start to run the ball. You remember when Jeff Garcia was the quarterback and Brian Westbrook went off?
Yep.
That's because they were running the ball because they didn't trust Jeff, so they replaced him with Brian Westbrook. When Donovan got hurt a few years before, and then an A.J. Feely took over, and you saw Deuce Staley and Correll Buckhalter or Dorsey Levens, that's when they started to run the football and they became more consistent. But then whenever the franchise quarterback was in, Andy couldn't help himself. And that's what I'm a little worried about with Doug is every time that they do commit to running the ball, they're really good. But can Doug help himself? That's the big X factor because he's Andy Reid Jr. He's a worse Andy Reid. And if Andy couldn't help himself, I don't see why Doug can. And what I'm trying to say here, guys, is if you have a guy like LeGarrette Blount who's just on the sidelines because he can't really run routes and he's not getting the touches and he becomes a problem and this could be a total disaster. But it could also really work well because, for whatever reason in this Andy Reid offense, and I don't care who that coach is, this is the Andy Reid offense. When they commit to running the ball, when they really are giving you a 50-50 split or leaning towards the run game, historically, this is a really good Eagles offense. But when they throw the ball 40, 50 times a game, it becomes a little top-heavy, and it's real hit or miss. So I don't know. I know I've been ranting a little, but this is something that really bothers me, and I don't know where this is going to go.
All right. I mean, we dissected everything you need to know about LeGarrette Blount. We talked about the good that could happen and the bad that could happen. We're just going to have to wait and see.
John, real quick, prediction. What LeGarrette Blount's stat line, 2017?
10 touchdowns, 750 yards.
I think that's perfect. I would say about 700-800 yards, 8-9 touchdowns, 3.5 yards a carry.
Yep, that's exactly what I got about. Little voluntary workout report. Rasul Douglas played with the first team. Okay, good news. Yeah, Rasul playing with the first team. Got burned by Nelson Aguilar a lot. That's not good news because Nelson's not that good of a receiver. Zach Ertz looked good at the workouts, and Shelton Gibson, a West Virginia wide receiver, he didn't look good. But, I mean, it's voluntary workouts. I'm not going to put too much stock in it. What did you hear about the voluntary workouts so far?
I heard that Rasul Douglas had been playing very well. I also heard that Nelson Aguilar has been playing very well. And I'm actually, John, my big thing with Nelson Aguilar, John, you're saying he's just not that good of a receiver. In my mind, I think he's got all the physical tools in the world. I just think he's a total mental midget. And I think bringing in Alshon Jeffrey, having him be the number one now, bringing in Torrey Smith to kind of take the ball off, having Zach Ertz on this roster still, having Trey Burton on this roster still, having Jordan Matthews on this roster still, bringing in Pumphrey, having Darren Sproles, all of a sudden, Nelson Aguilar is what? Your fifth, sixth offensive weapon, and now all the pressure's off him. I bet you Nelson Aguilar has a pretty solid year. I would expect, John, about 800 yards receiving for Nelson Aguilar.
Wow. I will take the under on that.
I am
taking the under on that one. Holy smokes.
Between 650 and 800, Nelson Aguilar.
Okay. Ooh. Okay. Hold on. I'll stop you right there. Every year, I don't know if you grew up like this, but Ray Didinger and Glenn Macnow was my favorite Eagles show growing up. They would be on Saturdays and Sundays. And every year, yeah, it's still on. If I want to listen about just Eagles breakdown.
Not as good as Howard on Saturday, but it's pretty good. Howard Eskin. Love the King. Howard Eskin all day.
But anywho, Glenn and Ray, they do a fun bet at the beginning of the year of they set an Eagles stat line. It'll be like combined defensive line sacks or will the third string running back get 3 touchdowns? Over under, Evan, I'm putting it at 650. receiving yards, Nelson Aguilar. Do we want to make that ours? You and me.
I'll go over.
Okay, I'm going under. And
I think Torrey Smith will disappoint, and I bet you Nelson Aguilar will play well enough to get a shot, and because all the pressure's off of him, and he's also tracking drops. And I think with Nelson, I always believed that he would the next place he went, he'd play pretty well because it's all mental with him. But now that you got, and in the years past, a lot of pressure was on Nelson because they didn't have a whole lot else wide receiver-wise. But now you got Alshon Jeffrey, and all these guys I already said. So there's no pressure on Nelson Aguilar, and I just think that he, being the mental midget he is, the pressure's off. He can just go out and compete, and I think he'll have a big year. And also, John, 650 is not a crazy amount of receiving yards. And you look at Demaryius Thomas, and his numbers were very similar over his first 2 years of his career. And I think Roddy White was up there too, very similar first 2 years of his career. So I mean,
if he turns out to be Roddy White or Demaryius Thomas, I'll gladly pay for any.
First of all, I'm not saying that's Nelson Aguilar, but I will say, John, before Demaryius Thomas going into his third year, and Roddy White going into his third year, they weren't Roddy White and Demaryius Thomas. They were basically Nelson Aguilar. And so before they aren't. And I'm just telling you that I think that without the pressure and of all the physical gifts he has and the fact that teams aren't really going to game plan for him, I think he's going to go play very well, considering that I don't think Torrey Smith's going to have that big of a year. I'm not even sure if Torrey makes the team.
Okay, just for the viewers at home, Evan and I, just a little insight into our friendship. We love going to Chili's together. I mean, I always try to get him to do the 2 for $20, and he's never feeling it. But
John, steak is not on the 2 for $20. The ribeye.
If
I keep telling you that.
If Evan's correct about this,
you're in Cleveland.
I'm paying dinner for Evan and I at Chili's, whatever he wants. If I win, Evan's paying for whatever I want at Chili's. So we're putting anything the other person wants at Chili's on the line here.
You putting words in my mouth, John? John, I'll buy you a series of weenie wraps. The little hot dogs that are like wrapped in.
We're putting Chili's on this one, man. That's our spot. You're confident about this pick?
I am confident, but I don't know.
Yeah. Oh, so okay.
How about Mission Barbecue and King of Prussia? I'll take you to a barbecue.
No, I want to sit down and enjoy myself in a nice atmosphere.
I was here yesterday. It's delicious. Mission Barbecue and King of Prussia. It's awesome.
But Chili's is our spot, man. That's our friendship right there.
We're not dating. We don't have a spot. We can go to different places.
Okay, we don't have a spot. We've gone to Chili's more than any other place.
John, why do you make everything sound weird? Like
now
it's
weird.
Like platonic dates all the time to Chili's.
I just love the chicken crispers.
Well, no, you do. I mean, you make that apparent every time we're there.
So 650 over, Evan's getting free chili. 650 under, I'm getting free chili. So, man, maybe we could get a sponsorship for them. We gave them a lot of plugs today. But anywho,
a corporate chain like Chili's to sponsor us. Go for it, John.
This next segment, the debate between Evan and I, brought to you by Chicken Crispers. Get them from Chili's. So, Evan, this is something you and me discussed on the phone when we were planning this episode. Your heart's one way on this one. My heart's the other way. I think this will get the attention of a lot of our Philadelphia sports friends. Kevin Durant during the NBA Finals said Kyrie Irving is better than Allen Iverson was in his prime. That was a huge debated segment between everybody. I agree with Durant. I'd rather have Kyrie Irving in his prime than Allen Iverson in his prime. You're a big AI guy. You love that 2000, 2001, 2002 Sixer teams. You had season tickets. I know AI is your boy. Well, what did you think when Durant said this?
Well, John, I don't have the numbers in front of me, and I'm not going to stop this podcast to look stuff up. What I can tell you is when Kyrie Irving how many years was Kyrie the guy in Cleveland before LeBron came back? 2 or 3?
Can
you look that up?
3 years, I think.
That was 3 years? And
yeah.
Did they win any more than like 25 games at any point?
They were fighting for the 8th seed the year before LeBron came back.
Well, John, my argument is Allen Iverson in his second or third year as the guy. And yeah, I'm a big defender of those old Sixers teams, but to the casual fan, and a lot of people argue that those Sixers teams were awful except for Allen Iverson. I don't necessarily agree with that, but people think they were awful. And they were getting to the second round of the playoffs. And then they eventually got to the East. And Allen didn't need LeBron James or the equivalent of LeBron in those days showing up. I mean, who was the equivalent of LeBron back then?
Shaq. Shaq was the most dominant player.
Yeah, like Allen didn't need Shaq to start winning, just to get into the playoffs or start winning playoff series. I mean, John, we can talk about numbers. We can talk about flashy plays. One thing that I will give you is Kyrie Irving might be the best finisher around the rim in NBA history. I heard that on the TV, and as I watch, I start to agree with it. He's phenomenal around the rim. He's certainly a more fundamental shooter. He's definitely, better more presentable, and at least on the TV screen, he seems like a better leader and all that stuff. And I'll give you all of that, John, all of that. But in the end, John, we don't watch sports to watch individual performances, or it's about wins and losses. It's about how effective a team is. And ultimately, John, that's why they keep score. That's why there's a playoff system. That's why we play, not for Kyrie Irving stats, not for big plays, not for cool looking, this or that, or individual. It's about winning and losing. And say what you want about Allen Iverson, after that second year in the league, they weren't just, getting into the playoffs. They were winning series. And, Larry Brown was a huge part of that, and I don't want to overlook that. But in the end, Allen was the guy. He was the franchise player. They built that team around Allen Iverson, and they saw dividends. They got dividends or saw results, and that was paying dividends pretty much right away. And, that whole culture of that team changed right away. If anything, I would say Allen is more comparable to LeBron than he is to Kyrie Irving. I know LeBron is ultimately much better. But the fact of the matter is, LeBron shows up, Cavs start winning pretty much right away. Allen shows up, Sixers start winning pretty much right away. Kyrie Irving shows up, Cavs never do anything. It takes LeBron to come back. And, Kyrie wasn't even good enough to get other players to even want to come to Philly. Now, I know Allen struggled to get guys to come to a lot because of his style of game, but the Sixers were winning. I do obviously, I think Pat Croce and all there was a better front office, and it's a better basketball town. There's more tradition in Philadelphia, and I get all those things. But in the end, the Sixers won and were competitive. And at least from 1999, 2000, 2000 to 2001, and for a little from 2001 to 2002, the Sixers were in the discussion to win the East, and were at least a real dark horse to win an NBA title. We're at least somewhat in the discussion with Allen as the guy. Kyrie is the guy. The Cavs were awful. And, I think Kyrie is the second best player on a team in the league, maybe. And, there are times you can argue that he was the guy that won that playoff series last year, not LeBron. You could argue those things. But it's all just an argument. It's all could be this, could be that. You saw it with Allen. You saw him win. You saw him take him to the finals. You saw him do it with a different cast of characters often, and with a couple of different coaches. They were still getting in the playoffs and winning rounds. What has Kyrie Irving ever done except for be a very nice second fiddle to LeBron James? In my mind,
I think Kyrie's the best scorer in the NBA right now. I don't think anyone can drive better than him. I don't think anybody has a better handle from two, 40% from three, and 90% from the free throw line.
Are you trying to tell Allen Iverson might be like the best scorer of all time?
But Allen Iverson can't shoot as well as Kyrie. That's insane. 50% from the field, 40% from three. Picture if AI with those handles had That's one thing Kyrie has. That
I knew, because, John, at the end of the day, my argument comes down to actually winning.
Yeah.
Throwing stats out that mean nothing.
And that's why, like, I've been telling my Cavs friends all day, trade Kevin Love for Kristaps Porzingis. 2018, like a lot of insiders are saying, I think a Kyrie team with Kristaps Porzingis.
If Kyrie was that good, John, why would LeBron want to leave?
What?
If Kyrie was that good, why would LeBron want to leave?
Because supposedly LeBron wants to leave because of the business ventures he has in LA. It would have not to be because the Cavs can win, because of the business ventures that LA offers.
I don't know, John. I mean, to me, it's just, I mean, for you, it's all hypothetical and numbers and all. I mean, but Allen Iverson literally won as the franchise player.
And we also have to remember, I'm not an AI guy either. I've always been down on Iverson. I've never liked his shooting. I was so upset that we could never bring in a second star.
John. No. The Sixers were perfect with 4 defensive players and Allen Iverson.
You know what? One finals.
No, John. Don't you remember the next year they trade Tyrone Hill and
they blew it up.
They bring him out, and then they never got back. You know who got to the Eastern Conference Finals after the Sixers? The Nets.
Larry Brown.
The Nets twice. Those Nets teams with like Kenyon Martin.
The Jason Kidd.
Yeah, but Jason Kidd.
Yeah, Jason.
You mean Asen Kidd ain't got no J? Asen Kidd, Kenyon Martin, who might be, just a freak defensive player who gave you nothing offensively. Kerry Kittles was on those teams. I mean, who?
It's like that. What happens if they never did the Mutombo trade? It's that big what if.
I mean, in my mind, John, you look at it and you had a defensive player in Dikembe Mutombo, a defensive rebounder in Tyrone Hill, who was a former NBA All-Star, a defensive wing corner shooter in George Lynch, a defensive offensive off-guard guy in Eric Snow, a 6th man of the year in Aaron McKee. None of these guys demanded the ball. All these guys played great defense, and none of them really minded watching Allen Iverson dribble around and take borderline every shot for 45 minutes a game. And it won. And what did Larry Brown do? He kept trying to bring in offensive help. In theory was trumping fact of, oh, man, what if you got another offensive guy, but you were taken away from the defense? Because Allen Iverson really wasn't a great defensive guy. He was just going to take a lot of chances, try to pick off passes. So you needed defensive players to collapse in when Allen lost those, took those gambles and lost. And you needed a bunch of guys offensively standing around the perimeter, watch Allen Iverson drive in, collapse the defense, either take it up for a layup or kick it out to like George Lynch for a corner 3. And it was working perfect. And Larry Brown, again, it was theory over fact. And that's why the Sixers never took the next step. In my mind, because Pat Croce left, and because Larry Brown was awful as like a general manager type thing. And that was my big thing, with that. But they were very successful and they were winning and they had a real chance. In my mind, that's what really happened there. That the Sixers got too cute and got too worried about what if as opposed to what is.
And the only thing is, now that Kyrie's in his prime, the only way we'll see this if LeBron does leave again. And honestly, I didn't like the comparison, but KD, I would compare Russell Westbrook more to Allen Iverson than Kyrie.
Yes. Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, is
I feel like
Allen Iverson could have been if Allen was like 6'5".
Yep, I think Russell Westbrook is today's AI. I tell people that all the time.
I agree with that too. Kyrie Irving is too fundamentally sound in my mind.
Yeah, I think it was just because they were in the finals and probably Allen Iverson was a player KD grew up loving to watch, and they have similar handles. But that's all the sports talk we got. We got we got our fun topic, our fun segment now. Evan, what's the jersey you're breaking out today?
John, why don't you go first? Because I've got a really good one. You go first.
Okay, I'll go first, and I'm doing a jersey, which Evan hates that I do these. When the Sixers made this move, it was only fitting that I break this out. And I'm not going to lie, I actually looked at my Facebook anniversary comments, and I did not like this move 3 years ago. And it was Michael Carter-Williams, the Rookie of the Year for the Lakers' first-round pick, which the Suns owned at the time. And I did not like it because I liked Michael Carter Williams. But it's kind of fitting. And that Michael Carter Williams deal to get the first round pick translated into the Sixers eventually landing the first overall pick. So Michael Carter Williams got us Markelle Fultz. So thank you, Michael Carter Williams. It was kind of funny. Everyone was tweeting, "Thank you, Michael Carter Williams." The past couple
back,
days.
For what? Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah,
I saw that too.
I thought that was great.
All right, John. I think that wasn't bad. I think the red jersey's kind of gross. I thought those jerseys.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Well, I remember. I mean, no offense to my dad. I love my dad. It's his birthday the day after your birthday. So happy birthday, Dad, on June 23rd. I remember when he got me this. I was like, Dad, I wanted the blue one. He's like, they didn't have the blue one. And I was like, ah.
All right, John. Well, mine, I just think this is a cool jersey, and I know you'd like it because it's a Philadelphia one, and it's one of my Mitchell and Ness collections, and it's my Philadelphia Phillies authentic McGraw. It's got a zipper right here. It's an authentic look. I really do like this jersey a lot. If I had my way, this would be what the Phillies are still wearing. I think this was the best color scheme they ever had.
That is fresh.
I think the basic red, white, and blue look is played out. I think the Phillies look gross. I've always thought the Phillies look gross. But I thought this color scheme was really cool, and I thought that the Phillies made a mistake going away from it. But I think maroon and powder blue and white looks a lot better than royal blue, basic red and white. But, it is what it is.
And Evan and I got a little bit of a show announcement. We're going to start using Google Voice a little bit. And what that means is you, the listener and viewer at home, can call and ask us your sports questions. So if there's anything you want Evan and I to talk Philadelphia sports-wise, call in. And Evan, do you know that number offhand?
Yeah. Hold on. Let me find it again.
But this is a one way we're trying to take our podcast to the next level. We're trying to take our podcast.
All right, guys. So I'm gonna be honest with you guys. I just downloaded this last night, and we're still trying to figure out how this works. But I do think that we can play the voicemail on the show, and we can answer your questions there. And the number again is, or not again, the number is 267-800-7841. So go ahead and call 267-800-7841. Ask us your questions, and obviously we will play the recording on air as long as it's appropriate, and we will answer your questions. So go ahead and give us a call, and hopefully everything works out. I'm not really a technical guy, but between me, my brother, the producer, and John, we should be able to come up with how to do this.
And so next week, it's going to be more of a Sixers-dominated podcast again because we're going to have the results from the NBA draft. Evan and I will be breaking down each pick. We'll be breaking down Markelle Fultz's game a little bit more. We'll be breaking down all the second-round picks the Sixers make on Thursday's draft. So happy birthday, Evan. Happy birthday to my dad. It's happy birthday week.
Thank you, John. What'd you get me?
What?
What'd you get me for my birthday, John?
I don't know. Did you check your mail?
Not yet, John. I'm waiting for like $500 from John for my birthday.
You wish, man. I don't make that kind of money.
John's gonna get me $500.
But we'll see you next week, fellas.
I'll see you, John.